Hey everybody, we're Pen and Pole DFS. I'm Ricky.
I'm Keaton.
And we are here to talk to you about NASCAR Week 3 at Homestead. Look at me, I pointed in the right direction this time.
You wouldn't know that was a joke because you didn't know we had a whole first video recorded and this is take 2.
Yes. So, we are talking about NASCAR. I come from a pretty good knowledge of NASCAR. I like NASCAR a lot.
I know absolutely nothing about NASCAR. I'm learning the drivers' names for the very first time.
Yeah, Keaton is what some would call a novice.
Yes.
And so we are...
I've learned a lot in the last 2 to 3 hours, though, let me tell you.
Yeah, and he could repeat everything that I have told him.
Like a parrot.
So, yeah,
Let's do
we're
it.
in for it. We're in for it. But yeah, so we're going to talk about NASCAR. We're going to talk about the race tomorrow at Homestead. What are we drinking today?
Today we are drinking High Pitch Mosaic IPA from Highwire Brewing in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah,
they are not a sponsor,
kind of
but we would absolutely let them be a sponsor.
Yeah. They opened a tap room in Durham.
Really?
Yeah.
I like Highwire. The few times I've been to Asheville, it's a cool tap room
cool
and good beer, and this is great beer.
This is pretty good, yeah.
We thank you to Kelly for selecting our.
That's his wife.
That's my wife, yeah, for selecting
if you were
the
just
beer
like,
for us.
oh, thanks, random lady.
I mean, I figure literally everyone watching the show knows this because it's pretty much our friends and family.
Well,
always, so.
you know, we have to act like that's not true. This is our second video. We've got upwards of one new person.
Upwards of 5 to 6 subscribers.
And honestly, there's probably a good portion of people who are only watching it because of me and don't know who the heck you are.
That's absolutely probably true. And so
And
one other feedback that we received is we were supposed to tell you to hit that like and subscribe button down below because we do want
also
other people.
Give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, that will help other people besides our friends and family find this show, and so hopefully we stop talking directly to you.
I don't know how many videos we could do where it's only y'all, but we're very appreciative.
Yeah, we super
and
appreciate
honestly,
anyone that wants to watch this.
If at some point I actually got good at this, I would talk to anybody about it.
I'm still talking to anyone, and I'm like moderately good at this, not to toot my own horn.
Yeah, but NASCAR on the other hand, not moderately good at.
Yeah, no, absolutely terrible at NASCAR. Looking today, I had a big crash course. What I didn't realize, and we'll get into it, is that there are just some cars that are garbage, it sounds like, which is just mind-blowing to me. So we'll get into that as we go through today.
Yeah, well, I've given him the crash course on really the hierarchy of teams, right? Like, there's going to be...
There's Toyota cars, there's Chevy cars, and Ford cars.
Yes,
there's
that
Ford
is
cars.
correct.
Boom.
Thank God there's only 3 because he could have never got to 4.
Because I would have been like the Mitsubishi car.
Well, at least you tried. But anyways.
Let's get off the rails. Are we ready for take 3?
No, we're gonna keep going.
Okay.
We've actually done really well. I haven't even pointed the wrong direction yet. Look at that. Anyways, so we're gonna start. I'm gonna walk through kind of the scoring for NASCAR. Because a lot of people, this guy. Hasn't done it before. I haven't done it before. I'm learning.
And it's really the single biggest component,
and
right?
it's the biggest component because just to give a little bit of background, me and Keaton a couple weeks ago before the Daytona 500, the time where people who've never heard about NASCAR decided to pay attention.
Football was over. I need something else to gamble on.
He goes, "Hey,
let's go.
Do you want to help me with a fantasy lineup, a daily fantasy sports lineup in NASCAR?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Is it my money?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Yes." And so I gave him a lineup. I looked up how much people cost. I put them together. I was like, "Oh, this is great." And then it sucked for 2 reasons. One, because it's a Daytona 500 and everyone wrecked.
Yep.
But 2, I didn't know how you scored, which honestly really feels like my fault or possibly your fault since it was your money.
My fault. Yeah.
But I feel like you probably should have told me.
Step 1: explain the rules of the game.
Yeah, I mean, apparently.
That feels like step 1. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to explain the rules of the game.
Rules of the game. It's really basic. Almost annoyingly basic.
Yeah, you were surprised. I know when we looked at this.
I was very frustrated. So, for all of you people that hate stages and all of the things that have to do with that, you'll love daily fantasy sports NASCAR because stages don't matter at all. But I'll tell you what, the 4 things that do kind of don't make sense sometimes. So, we got lap base and we got finish base. they're grouped together like that because a lot of times they kind of go together, especially the finish base. I pointed the wrong way. We made it a whole 5 minutes in the video before I pointed the wrong way. That's pretty good because I did it about 15 times in the first 5 minutes of the first day. So, anyways, but they really go together. So on lap base, you get points for lap led. You get points for being the fastest car on a lap.
Okay.
So literally, there's going to be a few top cars that get those, and there's not going to be that much more. So really, like, if you're a car that's running, even a car that's running 10th, you may get a few fastest laps, but you're not going to get that many laps led, especially at Homestead.
And we talked about that a lot on this course, yeah.
You really are, that's not really a place where you're going to get a ton of points from most cars. The finish base, which we'll talk about in a second, is really where it's going to be. But anyway, so like lap sled, you get 0.25 per lap sled, and Homestead is a place where we just have a couple people lead most of the laps.
Real consolidated.
And so we call them gunners. That's what we have coined them as, and hopefully that will stick.
And when it comes to building lineups, that's kind of where we're starting with our lineups. We're starting with our gunner.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about, as we go through here, kind of our thought process behind starting with a gunner. We'll also talk about some gunners that we like. But here is kind of the building blocks for what makes a gunner. And so it's that points per laps led. It looks like we can really get some guys that are going to pick up a big chunk of, what do we have? So we have 400 laps. Is that a fact today? Or tomorrow we have 400 laps?
It's a weird number.
Okay.
It's like 267.
I love it. Okay, so we're going 267 laps, and so
it may be more than that.
I mean, you can see here, like it looks like Hamlin led almost half. Well, it's called the Dixie Cup 400. I don't know if that means they're doing 400
miles.
laps. So 400 miles. What's 1.5 divided by 400?
300 laps.
Boom.
We'll run 300 laps. Maybe we'll run 400 laps and run 500 miles, but that doesn't sound right. So
it feels like
600 miles, wouldn't it?
Math. And I'm a lawyer, not a math.
I'm not either.
So we're talking about. We're looking at the numbers here. Guys are picking up huge chunks of those laps led, and so we really want to identify, as we're building lineups, the guys we think can be those gunners that are going to lead large chunks of laps. Yeah, exactly. But the hard part here, and this is where I put the Ricky verdict. This is a new entry that we're introducing here. It's called the Ricky verdict, and it is where at the end of the slide I say what I think about it. And what I think about this is that I don't know how you pick who the person is that's going to lead the most laps. Because if you look at the last two races, do you see the same names? Well, and so this is where the DFS kind of knowledge, where I can impart that. Because we don't necessarily want to get in the business of predicting. We want to get in the business of kind of building lineups that happen a couple different ways, right? So if in our mind there's a handful of guys that have a chance to be that true gunner, then we kind of want to build a handful of lineups where we have those gunners and then we mix and match the other guys with them, because that gives us a few different shots to build that number one lineup, which is what we're going for. So verdict here, nice to get, wouldn't depend on any driver. Exactly. We can't depend on any one driver. We're not going to lock in, a Hamlin in all of our lineups, but we are going to lock in the idea of a gunner in most of our lineups. It may not necessarily be Hamlin, but it is going to be a gunner type locked into most of our lineups.
And just to clarify my original question, do you see any of the same names over twice?
Oh, I'm sorry. No. We did not see a lot of repeats. No.
No, but exactly what Keaton was saying, right, is that you see the fact that one or two drivers is going to be the one that leads 100 plus laps. Some years it's two. And the last 2 years, Blaney leading 70 laps is a lot of laps led.
Between them, that was 207 laps. Between them the year before, it was 223 laps.
And
so that's a big chunk.
You look at that, and that's really going to be something that if you can hit on at least one of those two drivers as your gunner,
ideally
it's going to put you over top. Yeah, and it's going to be hard to get both
with the price tags. Yeah.
But if you are able to that's where you're going to be able to get points at. And that's where you're going to, differentiate yourself. And that's why we talk a little bit later about strategy for how to pick and that type of thing that I've all made up. Keaton's going to add knowledge from his side. And then you get the crazy left field stuff from me that all of our six 6 subscribers.
All 6 of you.
All 6 of you have come to know and love. Again, like and subscribe. But anyway, so back to this. So fastest lap, I call it the Ricky Bobby Award because you just want to go fast.
I love it.
And the cool thing about this one is that everyone kind of sort of gets to go fast. 24 drivers had at least one fastest lap. But that being
has a lot to
said,
do with pitting and things like that.
yeah, old tires, new tires, who knows what. I'm interested. I don't know. I actually don't know for fantasy whether or not like a caution lap. I assume it's only green flag, right? Like it has to only be green flag.
I have no
Like
idea.
how would you be fastest otherwise? Anyways, we're pretty sure it's only green flag anyways. Also, that's
I
how.
feel like we should find
if
that
you
out.
add all those up, it's less than 300. So it's
Well, we looked here. It's 267 laps.
267.
Yeah, 267.
Oh. There you go. That is how.
Franz, don't berate us on our math.
Anyways, nonetheless, but you see here, you see a little bit more parity because you see 5 drivers had at least 20,
And no one was
really walked away.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is an example where you might not lead laps, like somebody like Tyler Reddick didn't necessarily lead laps, but he got a lot of fastest laps awards.
Yep.
He finished up there,
And at almost twice the points per lap. I mean, that is significant.
Yeah. And so, his 48 laps is almost the same as leading 100 laps. So, if somebody comes out there and does that, they're gonna set you up really well.
Yeah.
And so I noted down in the Ricky verdicts for this slide that if you think when you're picking your people, you want them. If you think somebody can finish in the top 5, they're probably going to get you a good number of fastest laps too.
Yep.
If they're a top 5 car, they're going to get you 15 to 20 plus fastest laps. So that's kind of where it's not easy to predict, but you almost want to go more towards like the finishing position type to look at that than just straight laps led.
That was the thing that came to my mind here was that I almost wanted to disregard this fastest lap and more focus on the guys I think we're going to finish at the top because if it is so strongly correlated, there isn't necessarily point in trying to get into the weeds on the lap issue when really you're talking about top finishing positions.
Exactly. So, and then just going on to the next one, finishing position. So, like we said, finishing position and point position differential are going to go hand in hand. It basically ends up being 1 point per position. You get 45 points for first, 42, 41.
Down on down?
Down on down. I think there's I think 10th place is 34 and 11th place is 32. So
is that 2 point drop off?
For every 10, I think there's a 2 point drop off. But other than that, it's basically going to come down to 1 point per position.
The dirty.
The easiest way to think about it. And so, you think about 45 being the most you could get, but it goes straight hand in hand with your position differential.
Exactly.
Because, if you can, even if you finish 15th, but you started 35th, you're going to end up with more points than if Denny Hamlin were to start first and win, right?
But in terms of modeling it, it's easy to think of these numbers together because they are linked together.
They are.
So when you model it, it is
literally
the same
linked
number.
together, which again kind of was my annoyance with the fact that there's only 4 scoring categories, and that literally like the point differential and finishing position are like so intricately
co-mingled. But it gives, I think, an edge, and I'm guessing this was probably more true historically in these contests. The field's gotten sharper, almost across the board. The field's gotten sharper in DFS contests, but historically, at least, kind of what I've heard from others is that there was a huge edge to be had in the NASCAR specifically in just building lineups that accounted for place differential because a lot of the field was doing kind of like what Ricky talked about last week, picking the dudes they thought were going to finish up top without really regard to where they started. And at the end of the day, that's probably smart from a betting perspective, but it's not smart from a DraftKings scoring perspective.
When you say that the fantasy user base is sharper now, have you taken into account that I'm in it now and I used to not be?
So the field has gotten slightly less sharp in the last 2 weeks. Or last week, but no, as a general rule, I think 2014, 2015, I wish I had played daily fantasy sports back then. It sounds like there was significantly easier fields. There's just so many websites out, so many predictive tools out.
We're really jumping in at kind of the Instagram point of daily fantasy sports as opposed to the MySpace point.
Yeah, we're
really
definitely
different.
more established than
Kind
MySpace
of how,
at this point.
kind of how we're starting a YouTube channel like 15 years after like it was actually useful to start a YouTube channel.
Yeah. But I keep saying that everywhere. This is the time to start it. You got to start now or never, right? Hit that like and subscribe and help us grow this YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly. See, you get it. But anyways, I call this the Most Improved Student Award. And
it's not nearly as catchy as the Ricky Bobby Award.
It's not as good.
Hey, if you have a comment or suggestion, put it in the comments below.
We will, if you have a good name for each of these scoring things, every week we will yell your name very, very
It's not going to
softly.
beat the Ricky Bobby Award. But
the Ricky Bobby Award is the official name.
DFS.
The official Ricky Bobby Award for fastest lap.
But don't sue us, Will Ferrell.
I feel like he doesn't have the rights. I don't know. It was his production company, so probably. Anyways.
Will Ferrell's people don't
But,
sue us.
anyways. So, if you could come up with a cool name for each of these, that would be awesome. And also, it would show that you just watched the video 16 minutes
to the 16-minute in mark,
which would be also a huge win.
Seriously, if any of you do that, put the comment below and just let us know.
Yeah, if you just put 16-minute clan here.
I made it to the 16-minute mark. But tell you what, I will sponsor somebody in a $5 DraftKings tournament next week. If you put a comment down below, I will choose one random person that puts a comment down below because literally it's going to be Emma. So Emma, next week, that's you.
That's perfect. Or someone else.
But probably Emma because it's going to be her. Because there's only going to be one person down below.
Anyway, so now we're going racing.
Let's do racing.
We're going to Homestead, which by the name of the track, you might think is in Miami.
It sounds like it's not in Miami at all.
I don't even know if it's near a beach. It probably is. They have a palm tree.
These are people in Rock Hill, South Carolina claiming Charlotte.
These are the Homestead is the Rock Hill of Miami, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that sounds
in
right.
that the houses are probably cheaper.
Booze is cheaper.
Booze
Gas
is probably
cheaper.
Everything's probably...
But it's kind of shittier, right? Crappier, right?
That's probably right.
Sorry, Mom.
It's fine. Anyways, but nonetheless, 1.5 mile intermediate. So you're going to get a lot of strung out racing, and they're going to have long green flag runs, and they're going to get time and space in between them. And there's going to be a lot of lap cars.
So real quick, one thing I've learned from Ricky over the last couple hours is that there's a few different types of tracks at NASCAR.
And
so this week we are on a 1.5 mile intermediate track. Last week we were on the road track at Daytona. And the week before that we were on the traditional track at Daytona, which is how long?
2.5 miles.
Okay, so what would you call that? This is an intermediate track. Would you call that a long track?
I would call that a super speedway.
A super speedway. We're learning today, folks. And what are the biggest differences between a super speedway and an intermediate track?
The drafting. The drafting on the super speedway. You're going so fast that the drag is so important on it. Cars are going to be closer together. You're also
saw the banging together last week. 2 weeks ago.
All of the banging together. That's actually a technical term.
Bang together.
We use that when we're talking about short track racing too.
Okay.
We bang together basically every turn.
Okay.
Yeah. So
are we going to see any banging together today? Or tomorrow?
I mean, we saw some in the Xfinity race. We saw Noah Gregson get banged.
And he was heated about it.
Banged while in the lead with 3 laps to go by a lap car, which is the ultimate nightmare. But no, I like Homestead a little bit more than some of the other tracks, and I do think it gets a little bit racier. You're running it so close to the wall with a lot of guys that you see a little bit more action. It's still not. It's just go to more short tracks, NASCAR.
I know we talked about one driver in particular. You said that likes to ride the wall. Larson, right?
Yeah, Larson has made. I think he ran the wall at Homestead before it even actually made sense to run the wall at Homestead. But he ran it real quick, and so everyone just kind of followed him.
Okay.
But he's kind of a guy that he could run real fast, or he could put it through the wall.
He's looked good in a few models I've looked at, but I think that's pretty boom bust if he's got a chance to crash his car.
Yeah. But anyway, so kind of at the end of the day, top teams are going to be near the front. So you're not going to get. This isn't going to be a race like Daytona where, obviously, it could happen, but you're probably not going to get, somebody like Michael McDowell or in one of the smaller funded teams. You're probably not going to have them, get a win here, or even challenge for, maybe on the outside of top 10. Probably not even that, and it'd be hard to pick which driver you'd want there. And so I personally would stay away from most of the lower funded teams here, purely because of how important just the cars are here.
Okay. And that was a big thing that was, like I think at the top of the show, the idea that there's just some cars that can't compete in these fields was surprising to me, and kind of went against my natural instinct when building lineups, because I kind of wanted to try to fit in more of the studs while going down in price to some of the cheaper guys. And it sounds like that's probably not an ideal strategy when some of the cheaper guys just really don't have a shot at putting up any kind of reasonable number.
Yeah, and again, hopefully they do run well. They're all really good drivers, had success all the way up. But
just more so the cars, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm trying to teach Keaton that we don't say garbage team.
Garbage team, garbage car. Can we talk about cars as garbage?
I mean, no.
I don't want to call it driver garbage because I know all these are really talented guys, but what can I call garbage?
Garbage.
Poor, cheap, shooty.
I say lower funded personally.
Lower funded. That feels so PC.
I mean, anyways. So nonetheless, now we're going to walk into Ricky's selection strategy, which again, if any of you watched to the point where I was actually making picks in our fantasy golf, and also if you followed along at all at how any of my picks did, you would know that this is a made-up strategy, and I'm not sure it's going to work.
So in Ricky's defense, I still stand by a lot of his PGA picks. I don't know if you guys are watching the tournament, but Matt Wolff withdrew after the first round, but I think it was still a good pick. I still stand by him. Bryson had a similarly crappy first round and really came out strong in the next two rounds. I would have liked to see Wolff stick it out. There's some talk that he may have had some wrist troubles, but that's pretty frustrating to see a young guy withdraw from a tournament just because he had a poor first round. But beside the point, back to Ricky's selection strategy.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure Keaton's only keeps telling me that because he's afraid that I'm going to quit the golf side of this YouTube channel. Maybe
I want to make myself feel better that I still had a pretty heavy amount of Wolff myself. So,
anyways, nonetheless, here's my strategy this week. It's whoever hits the ball the farthest. No, that's not right. Dang it. Anyways, so again, I think you're going to want to target drivers with the most potential for finishing position and differential, the combined. And that doesn't mean just, whoever has the most, potential, not whoever just is starting 40th. There's only 38
drivers. Yeah, we found that earlier.
Which is insane because 40 cars are guaranteed slots. There's only 38 that enter.
So Ricky's going to roll out his car. If you guys don't know, Ricky does do some short track racing on the side.
Yeah.
You can check out number... Were we allowed to say her number? I was just I wasn't sure if I could release the new number yet.
Ricky Parker Racing?
Ricky Parker Racing.
Yeah, follow it on Facebook.
Yeah, go check out
Ricky
Parker
everyone
Racing,
watching this. If anyone watching this YouTube video does not follow me on Facebook, then yeah, you should follow it. But anyways, my car would not pass anything. Okay. Also, it would be in the way. You'd
be the guy that what's his name got off his car and said dipshits were in the way.
Yeah, I would definitely be that.
What driver was that? Because I like that driver. He might be
Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson's awesome.
Is he going to be up in the Cup Series eventually?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, he drives for Junior and Bush right now. But anyway, so my selection strategy. I'm pointing the wrong way again. My selection strategy
you guys be on the joke.
Is basically going to be the one gunner, one person that I think is going to be that guy that leads a lot of laps. That gets up there, finishes up front, leads a lot of laps, gets a lot of points. That probably is going to be somebody who isn't necessarily have a ton of position differential, but has the potential to score points in the other ways. And not in other ways because there's no other ways. There's only one other way.
And these are mostly high dollar guys, right? Most of your gunners coming from the high dollar tier.
I don't consider even other people that I think are going to win that are cheaper. I would consider them a gunner because I'm able to play higher value guys in there.
You're not putting them that one in gunner.
Exactly. I'm not calling them a gunner.
Fair.
But anyways, so that's kind of my strategy is a 1 in 5.
And so when you were going through the 38 drivers in this field, were you hard Xing out some players where you said, look, I'm just not rostering this guy?
Yeah.
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 I think that's really important in DFS selection generally is limiting your player pool to a number that is manageable, because when you you don't want to play all the guys in the field and be so spread out that you don't have an opportunity to make that perfect lineup, because really it takes a perfect lineup to win. And so narrowing your player pool is really important to give yourself an opportunity to put that perfect combination together when you choose the 15 drivers that are going to finish well in this tournament.
And just to give a little bit more on that, the way I did it personally, I went through, and each guy, if he wasn't somebody that I thought would finish at least in the top 20,
okay,
I normally X them out, and then just coupling on that the position differential, so where they're starting. So if it was somebody that I thought, there's a lot of good drivers are starting probably about where I think they're going to finish. And that's not going to get you any points
unless you are doing fastest lap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
it's a top 5 finish, right?
Yeah. I kept people like Denny Hamlin and
I think Bell's a good example.
Christopher Bell, exactly, who's starting third. Like I kept him in, and I have him in a lot of lineups, which I'll talk about in a minute. But like he's somebody that I kept in.
Yep.
But like somebody who because you think he's going to get those points though,
exactly.
Right? And possibly even go above and get the lap led and the fastest, that type of thing. And so, but like, somebody who, is starting 15th, and I think is probably maybe 10th, but probably in that 10 to 15 range.
Yep.
Like, you're not going to win with that person unless, some chaos theory happens, right?
The idea of ceiling in daily fantasy sports is really important. So, the simplest example is like driver 38 has the highest ceiling in this race, right? In theory, he has the chance to finish first, get the most points differential.
Tyler Exner's last.
Number 38 in this race is Hoff.
Oh,
so
Hoff.
Hoff in theory has the highest ceiling, right? Yeah. He can, in theory, lead every lap but the first, right? He somehow comes out after the first lap, gets out in front. He has every fastest lap, and he finishes first in the race. And so, in a absolutely insane world, it sounds like Hoff probably isn't the driver that's going to do this, but in an absolutely insane world, thinking about the highest possible outcome is Hoff is the player that offers you the highest possible ceiling. So, distilling that across all of our player field, you're able to see the lowest possible ceiling, I guess, is the player starting in first, right? He doesn't have any points to gain in point differential. And so they're kind of narrowing your idea of building a player pool. That's one way to start. And then assigning how much do you think that is likely to occur? Because if you're saying like a guy in Bell, starting in third, we think it's really likely for him to finish top 5. We think it's likely he finishes some fast laps led, those kind of things. And so if that's a high likely outcome, he's probably still worth rostering, especially at a lower salary. And so these are just kind of things that we're thinking about when we're building rosters.
Exactly. And so yeah, we kind of talk about that in a little bit. We talk about kind of the way we guessed how they were going to do.
Guess is a great word. Educated guessed.
Fingers crossed. We looked at their past performance, and we assumed that it was going to be future performance. And
every financial advisor tells you that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. So you get it. Anyways, so yeah, we kind of walk through that, and I talk about how I, made up my lineups.
And I think I learned a ton. And actually, this next section here, I learned a ton on. We have some drivers that have switched their teams, and one thing that is important in all fantasy sports is kind of looking at what has happened in the past and using those past data points to help project into the future. Mm-hmm. And here, Ricky's going to highlight some guys where something has changed in their situation where that past performance may not help you predict the future outcome at all. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So you've got guys like Christopher Bell, Eric Jones, and Bubba Wallace, who all three are in different rides this year. They were all 3 in Cup last year with varying degrees of success, but they're in different rides this year, different tier, different levels of funding, as I said. And Christopher Bell's moving from a really good team in the '95 with Levine Family Racing as a satellite Gibbs team to the main Gibbs team. But that's obviously going to be a step up.
Right?
You're going to get the top cars there, and we already saw it last week with Chris Bell getting his first win.
And it sounds like last week's track was more driver intensive. This week's more car intensive. But if he's got both, I mean, that sounds like a bonus, right?
Yeah, and I mean, he finished top 5 last year in the 95 at Homestead.
So he likes this track.
Denny won last year in a Gibbs car. Kyle Busch has always been strong at least the last 3 races, and just, I mean, he's basically strong at every intermediate track.
And his price is cheap. He's
$7,600.
Yeah, he's cheap.
The downfall of it is that he starts third.
Yeah.
He
doesn't have that super high upside on point differential. You need him to lead some laps, and you need him to finish high.
Yeah.
He can kill your lineups if you roster and he ends up crashing early.
If he DNFs or
he's going to kill your lineups,
or falls down.
But that may help keep his ownership low, and that may help. If his ownership is low and he ends up putting up that performance that we hope he does, that can be an optimal guy right there.
Yeah. And then moving down to Chase Briscoe, somebody who I think is going to be probably heavy on. Like I think he's somebody that people are going to think they're picking a sleeper.
Yeah.
And I think I'm picking
like
a
the
sleeper,
obvious
but
sleeper,
he's like
right?
the obvious sleeper.
Yeah.
Because he's a guy, he's never been in Cup before. Before this year, Daytona was his first Cup race, so.
But he won last year in the Xfinity.
He won 9 races in Xfinity. He showed that he can compete.
Yeah.
You're kind of coming from 2 angles. The Stewart Haas cars are very good, and you're trying to figure out where he's going to fit. Some Xfinity drivers when they come up have maybe a little bit of a learning curve to get used to the bigger cars, and some drivers just jump right into it. Tyler Reddick's somebody who maybe a little bit early in the year had a problem, but I mean by the time they raced at Homestead, which was even with COVID was pretty early in the year.
Okay.
It was after COVID, but
After COVID, are we after COVID yet?
It was after COVID started.
Okay.
It was like one of the first races back, and so but like he came out and finished 4th here, and he had a up and down. You're gonna get more up and down from rookie drivers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But he's starting 30th. He's only $7,400, so he's somebody who definitely could add value, and I think is going to be a really kind of almost an obvious choice to put in lineups as kind of a lower priced guy.
That makes sense.
And then
Which is the guys you want to be cognizant of when you're building lineups. I mean, it's okay to roster them. We'll talk about Reddick in a little bit. But these guys are okay to roster, right? If they really are huge value, sometimes you've got to roster high ownership guys, but you just have to be cognizant when you're building lineups around them, especially if you're entering some of those big 50,000 player tournaments on DraftKings, that you have to get some lower ownership guys, or you're just not giving yourself a real shot to finish up top, or at least do so without tying with a handful of your buddies. And who wants to win a tournament and tie with 200 of their buddies?
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Well, I mean, it depends on how much money it is.
No, it's never as fun.
If you split like $1 million with 200 people, that's what
200 of my closest buddies. I'd rather it be 5 of my closest buddies, or maybe just 1.
Yeah. Anyway, so and then Ross Chastain's a similar concept to that. He's $7,400, so he's a couple $100 more expensive than Briscoe, and I think that's
and he stops a couple higher. He
starts in 32nd, so I think that's basically the differentiator
that makes
here.
Sense.
I mean, I think the Stewart Haas car that Briscoe's in is a little bit better. Chastain has driven a couple years in Cup, not in the upper tier, higher funded vehicles.
But it looks like he had 2 top 10s last year in the lower price car.
Xfinity, yeah, well, not the lower price car. No, he ran in Xfinity last year.
He's the one that went down and up.
Exactly. And so. He's kind of ran everywhere really between the 3 series, up and down. But so he has the experience. He's a watermelon farmer.
Okay. Great. Gotta have a hobby.
Anyways, I'm not sure. I guess a hobby kind of. His dad was, and now he has.
I've learned so much about NASCAR drivers. It's always amazing to me that most of these guys are actually like fairly independently wealthy. Outside of NASCAR, or come from like fairly wealthy families. Like someone's like, "Oh, that's the such and such nephew." I'm like, "Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be such and such's nephew? That seems right." So NASCAR, the great nepotism sport.
A little bit, unfortunately. Anyways, and then so Chastain's somebody who Maybe somebody who I don't know. I'll be interested to see like ownership once it starts, whether or not he's somebody that ends up being heavy. Like I think Briscoe's going to be heavy owned.
Yeah,
and I could see Chastain being somebody who is also pretty high owned, but maybe not quite as much as Briscoe.
If he's $200 more and he's in a slightly worse car, I can see that being a good pivot because if I'm hand building lineups and I'm down to my last $7,600, I've got to click one of these guys. I'm probably going to click Briscoe, right?
Yeah.
Like me, the average person building lineups. And so when I build a lineup, I want to do the exact opposite, right? And that's the DFS aspect of this. That it may be the slightly lower percentage play, but if the more of the field is on the higher percentage field, I can get offered better odds on my money to take the lower percentage play. And so Chastain might be that pivot off of Briscoe.
Yeah. And so the final two down there are Eric Jones and Bubba Wallace, and they almost did a swap. Jones in cars. Yes.
Okay.
So Bubba was in the 43 last year. He moves over to Michael Jordan's team in the 23, which is
I love the
True
23
Carolina.
team. Yeah, that's awesome.
True Carolina.
I'll support this one. I want to roster so real quick. Can I roster Bubba this week?
Sure, if you want to.
I mean, he's not in the low funded team, right?
No, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing. I'm interested to see how Bubba performs.
Okay.
Because I think it's interesting to see how a driver improves going from, a car like the 43, which I think was a top 20 car, right?
Okay.
Most weeks, to really this satellite Gibbs. It's another satellite Gibbs team, so it's going to be similar to like the 95 was last year.
Is this a new team this year?
It's a new team.
So we don't necessarily know anything about them,
except
they're buying cars.
So we don't know, yeah. But I think they're going to get a lot of support from Gibbs. So you're going to get. I think.
And MJ's a winner, right? Like I feel good about betting on MJ at a certain point. I mean, he's not a NASCAR winner.
The owner of the Hornets is a winner.
It's Michael Jordan, folks. He's a winner. Let's be clear.
But anyways, nonetheless, I'm interested to see. Bubba is at 7,000, so he's cheap. But my only fear is that he starts 19th.
Okay. He doesn't have that huge upside.
He doesn't have that huge upside. If he started, 30th, I'd be like, absolutely, because I think he's going to be. I think he's going to have top 15, maybe even top 10 car. But when you starting 19th, you're not getting the maximum value,
and you need the higher end of his range more often.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the other hand, Eric Jones is somebody who is moving from the main Gibbs team in the 20. Where he won races, really good driver, ran really well, into this 43, this lower funded team. We haven't seen what they're going to look like this year on an intermediate speedway. So we're going to talk about him later when we're talking about value, because statistically he looks
he pops in your model.
He pops.
Yeah, he definitely pops in your model.
I think he's top 5 in like most of the categories, if not top 10. Because he is only 6,900 or something like that. He's super cheap. Maybe 68.
Is he 68? Okay, but either way, he's cheap and looks to have that upside.
But I personally am staying away from him because I don't know. I think he starts. I actually don't know where he starts. Maybe
my computer just died right now.
I want to say he starts around. He also doesn't have the same upside, because I'm pretty sure he starts around 18.
And his car, you said he's moved to a significantly worse or lower funded car. Yeah. We don't want to call him worse car, right?
Yeah. So like I think a top 20. Like I would expect him to finish in the 15 to 20 range, and I'm pretty sure that's where he's starting. So you're not really getting much there. And this is actually an interesting spot to talk about kind of. The fact that there's no qualifying this year, it's based on a combination of your points and then how you did the previous week.
Okay.
And so as we move on, like through the year, the drivers that are performing well are going to all start towards the front.
Okay.
So that's going to be like a really interesting way to kind of figure out, especially with what we were talking about, how there really is a steep drop off in performance. At a certain level, where like we're gonna get to a point where right now,
rises to the top,
right now, like Tyler Reddick, Matt DiBenedetto, William Byron are starting in the 30th because they had a wreck at Daytona on the Speedway, and they maybe didn't run as well at the road course. But they're going to be at least a top 20, if not a top 15 to top 10 car.
Which makes them almost no-brainer plays this
Yeah,
way.
Exactly. And so as we get further in the season, it honestly might get harder.
Okay.
To try to find those people that are going to. So maybe as we get further along, who knows? As we go on, we might start talking more about finishing position and more about last lap and more about that type of thing. But right now, you're getting a little bit of I guess you call it opportunity here with like drivers who are kind of obviously misplaced for where that car is going to run.
Field, yeah.
And so that's something that you have to take advantage of because other people are. So.
And I also think you have to take advantage of it because other people aren't. Yeah. Because that is where you are getting your edge on the field. Because we talk about DFS is getting sharper throughout the years, but there are still mistakes being made, especially the lower stakes. Now, as you move up in stakes, there are fewer and fewer players, and they are making fewer and fewer mistakes. But at the mid and the low stakes, there are still tons of average players that just want to hop on, spend their $20 a week, have a little fun on DraftKings from their phone. It's effectively a mobile game for them, and there's still money to be made at the lower stakes. That is for sure.
Exactly. And if anybody wants to try DraftKings, we will put the
down in the show notes.
We'll put our referral code.
Yeah, Ricky's referral code down in the show notes. Yeah. You'll get a free $15 plus a free $3 code. Yeah. I believe you also get some for a deposit bonus, and then Ricky gets a free $15 ticket. And we'll show you our lineups that we
will upload the lineup for that, and watch me lose a.
And then when Ricky ships a big one, then we'll throw something back to the subscribers. We'll figure
upwards.
It out.
Yeah, all 6 of y'all might be getting some.
Yeah,
we'll see.
But remember to put a comment telling us what comment were they supposed to leave us?
They were.
Was it just that they made it to the 16-minute mark?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, just put honestly, a comment down there.
If anybody puts a comment, you're gonna pay them.
I'm gonna put one of them in a $5 contest next week on DraftKings.
One of them, yeah. We'll put you in a hat or something.
Because we have 6 subscribers, we're not a huge fun show. $5 seems like the appropriate amount of marketing budget.
Anyways,
right?
Back to it. Anyways, favorites to win. So this is where I look to pick the gunner.
Yeah, and this is where we're going to pull our gunner. We're looking at Vegas odds here. I think it's a great place to start. Vegas is smarter than just about any of us when it comes to gambling. And so we want to find our gunner. We want to find the one that's going to lead laps, that's going to lead the fastest laps a lot, and can give us that high finishing position. And this is where we're kind of looking independent of necessary starting position.
Yeah.
Because the upside isn't coming from point differential. It's coming from winning the race, leading laps, and having a fast car.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so you're looking at, and as you look at it, some of these guys actually, they're favorites, and they also have a little bit of
a few of them have
a little
bit
of position differential. So you look
Your boy
at Chase
Larson down there.
Yeah, Larson. He's a high amount of position differential. He's somebody who could go out there, and if he won, he probably is in the winning roster.
Oh, if he finishes top 5, I'm guessing he's in the optimal lineup. Especially if he has some fast laps. Yeah. So he's talking about he's a fast driver, right? Yeah. He just could flame out and crash along the edges.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm weary of Larson. New year, new team, first race at an intermediate track is a little bit worrisome for me.
All that makes me want to own him more
Homestead.
Because if people are scared off him because of those things,
I don't think people are scared off of him.
And then it makes me want to not.
Because we were looking at the ownership.
Was he pretty high in the ownership?
Pretty high up there. Okay. And I mean, he's the 5th favorite.
Then that makes me want to not play.
He's not. People aren't overlooking him. I'm wary of it.
Well, if people as a whole like him and he comes with some significant downside, those are the situations I want to avoid. That's where you hope 35% of the field rosters him and he crashes and you automatically leapfrog that 35% of the field.
If this was later in the year, if they were running Homestead like at the last race of the year like they did for a bunch of years, I'd be like, 100% put Larson in your lineup, especially starting 17th. But early in the year, first intermediate track with a new team, I'm weary of it. Other people I don't think are going to be as weary of it. By the Vegas odds, Vegas thinks he's got a good shot. So
I gotta step out really quickly. I'm gonna let you run down your favorite drivers real quick.
I will talk about favorite drivers, yeah. So, yeah, just going on to a few additional picks. These aren't in chronological order at this point. I think Kyle Busch actually is the 6th favorite, but he's somebody who is the most expensive driver, but he's starting in 24th, which is, again, one of those examples where this is somebody who is a top 5, top 3, top 1 car, probably. And so, starting 24th, you have the potential to get both a position differential bump and also a gunner at the same time, to where, you know, he probably is going to get some fastest lap. He could lead some laps, and he could very well finish in the top 3. And, you know, that's a lot of points. You're already getting over 60 points just for, if he were to finish, 4th, that's already, you know, almost 60, you know, in top 5, it's 60 plus points, just from position. And that's before if he were to lead laps or run the fastest lap. So, I mean, that's a lot of value there, but he also has a lot of price. So, again, that's something that I'm learning on the fantasy side, is how to kind of balance those, right? And we'll talk about value later, where, you know, we did, points based on price, and, you know, tried to figure out, you know, how valuable, you know, whether or not they were priced correctly. And Kyle Busch still lines up pretty well. He's not the number 1 guy, but he's in top 5 in most of those. So, yeah. But anyways, just going down, Blaney ran really well here last year. Starting 14th, a lot of position differential opportunity. 14-1, also not bad odds if you were a betting person, just on the winner. And then my pick, if I were putting $100 on, if I was walking into the casino and putting $100,
yep,
I would put it on Chris Bell, 25-1.
I love that.
$2,500. If anybody does that, they put it on there. What were we gonna do?
Feel free to.
You're just gonna give us money back.
Yeah.
We were gonna do nothing for you. Actually, here's what we're gonna do.
We'll make episode 3.
Yeah. If you show us the slip, you will be on our next show. And we can talk about the NASCAR topic of your choice.
We'll talk about Vegas. Yeah, we'll talk about Vegas betting, sports betting.
Exactly. So yeah, but anyway, so I put here, it's hard to bet against Denny. Him starting first, the way he ran last year.
Yeah. Just dominated last year.
Yeah, it's just hard. Plus, he's cheap, like, relatively.
For all the other gunners in our range, he cheap.
He loses that position differential possibility, but like,
there's almost a chance to put a Hamlin. You could almost go Hamlin, Harvick, Bell, and then build from there.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 guys in some of our favorites list.
Yep.
I'm guessing they're going to be pretty high owned, but I mean, the roster, in terms of price, you could probably still flesh out a pretty decent lineup starting with those 3 guys.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those. I have a couple lineups where I really do have 2 gunners, and I think I have Bell in it as well, so I would kind of have a very similar
almost
approach.
A 3-gunner, yeah.
Where, I have lower priced guys, not lower priced, but in the, the low 7,000, so like the Briscoe, Chastain, Bubba area.
They're all of that lower 7s.
Where, like, I'm able to get somebody in the 9s. Even the
a couple
10s.
guys, I would say a 9 and a 10
I think
almost.
Let's see. I have it right here. I don't have Bell in there.
Okay.
But I'm able to get...
And that lineup you could build, I think the difference between Briscoe and Bell, you might be able to flip Briscoe and Bell there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd probably move out Chastain.
Or you could flip Chastain and Bell.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely an option to be able to do, right? If you wanted to try to do that. It's a little bit risky in the fact that, you're having to bet on those 3 drivers being the ones that lead laps, right?
Because they don't have the chance to make up the point differential.
Exactly. Especially Hamlin, Harvick, right?
And Bell starting 3rd.
Yeah, Bell's the same way. Yeah. With their, a little bit higher price and no point differential, you're
locked into the fastest lap
But if you do, there's definitely potential there, and maybe that's something that one of the things that Keaton talked about going a direction that other people aren't necessarily. Yep. But
and there's still a path to that occurring. I mean, that's the biggest thing you need to think through is there a path to this occurring? How likely is that path to happen? And then on that path, what other things happen along the way? And in NASCAR, it's probably less to be able to look out into the future to say if this happens, then this and this either do or don't happen. But it's still kind of a good thought exercise to do.
Yeah, my only fear in that is that when we were looking at the lap leaders, like they are different over the past 2 years.
It looks
and so it's not one of those things where like one or two guys have been, leading a good portion of it each year to where you can kind of feel good about it. Like I could feel pretty good about picking one, but to pick two and hit both of them, that's probably asking a lot. And like maybe you do, right? But like it's going to be maybe if you're in a 40, 50, 150 entry type
that's exactly
pool,
what I was going to say.
Maybe you have one of those lineups. But like if you only
I think you have probably more of those. So I think in the 150 max entries, especially if you're playing a contest like the DraftKings, the $11, $100,000 up top tournament that's got 57,000 people, if you're building 150 lineups in that, the strategy is different. You probably need to think through 10 lineups with two of these guys, 10 lineups with two of the others, because you want all the combinations, because the ultimate goal is to finish number one. And so, even if you nail the core of 1-2 right, you need to nail the core of 1-2 right with his four ancillary buddies.
Yeah.
And so having multiple combinations of that 1-2 with different four guys gives you those shots on goal is kind of how I like to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly right. If you're rocking a large entry tournament, I think the two gunner route, and I have a few just a full transparency, I'm right now entering in a few one entry.
Yep.
I think I don't know if I have any in between, but I'm also entering into a couple of the 20 entries.
And I think 20 entries, so for people that aren't familiar with DraftKings offers a variety of contest sizes, both in the total number of entries and the total number of entries that you personally are allowed to submit.
Yeah.
And so what Ricky's talking about is he has entries where he's only allowed to submit one entry. Yeah. He has contests where he's allowed to submit 20 entries. And then the larger contests, you can submit 150 entries.
Yeah.
And so I still enter some contests that have 150 entries, even if I'm not putting 150 in. But I think you are probably in the long term sacrificing expected value by not max entering contests.
Keaton has told me I have to max enter every contest or he will murder me in front of y'all.
I didn't say that, but I do think you maximize your expected value by putting in the most entries possible per contest. So I like to focus on 20 max at contests as a general proposition for most of what I play. Now I do take shots at some of the bigger contest DraftKings offers because who doesn't want to look at that massive number up top? It's fun to dream, right?
It's a big number.
But I was telling Ricky earlier, I've got a lineup right now that's doing well in a PGA contest this weekend that is 19th, I believe, or 18th in one of the big entries, 70-something thousand runners. But that entry would be leading every single other contest I'm entering.
But you didn't have it in it.
But I don't have it in it, right? And so it's 19th in the big dog, maybe making a few $100s. But had I put it in some of my smaller contests, it'd be shipping 10K here, 5K here, 20K here. Yeah. Whereas I'm trying to shoot for that 250K up top. And so contest selection matters a ton in these things, is what I'm saying.
And that's probably something that Keaton should do another video on to explain to me a little bit better.
And he probably will try to do some evergreen stuff
later. And it depends on who ends up watching this, right? If it ends up, being people who, truly are novices on this and want to jump in the way that I am, if you all want that,
let us know.
We will definitely put that out there because it's a big learning curve. And
it's absolutely huge learning curve.
Just from the week, literally the week, 5 days. I opened my DraftKings account on Tuesday.
Yeah.
In the 5 days, like I've learned so much about the difference between the different tournaments and entry when you have mass entries like 20, 150 versus like a single entry, like how to approach that and how to do all of that.
Kind of how to think about the contest.
Yeah, and I mean obviously I still don't fully understand it, but like compared to how it was on Tuesday.
And that's what we want to do with this channel is hopefully people are interested in learning about it. We're happy to talk about it.
And hopefully y'all can just fast forward if you already know about it. Yeah. And now
back to some drivers.
And back to position difference.
So here
I deleted the bad slide that we got. We got stuck on a slide last time, and we just fell apart. So we haven't fallen apart yet. We even wrote the name of our channel correctly in the bottom this time, which we may or may not have done incorrectly the first time. It's hard to say. You'll never know. But anyway, so that being said, so this is some of the statistics that I did.
Yeah,
and again,
like
if you followed my PGA, my statistics are purely flawed.
Sample size. Small sample size.
But anyway, so I looked at the last 3 Homestead races, dating back, so the last 3 years they ran it one time each year.
Okay.
And some drivers that haven't ran all those 3, so like Tyler Reddick, who is the number 1 points getter, is only one race there because he was a rookie last year.
Yep.
But that being said,
he's pretty much everyone's favorite this week. I mean, he's in terms of
probably,
model.
He
price,
should be.
Yeah, he looks
based
good.
on everything I'm about to say for the next 20 minutes. Anyways, so nonetheless, so top 5 drivers. So anyways, I look at their average finish, and then I basically said their average finish is where they're going to finish on Sunday, and based on their starting position. So the amount of points that they would make from their finishing points and their point position differential, and so that this shows the top 5. You're going to see these drivers probably over and over again. Maybe not Truex because he's a little expensive, but
yeah.
You're going to see definitely the top 4 drivers. Reddick is somebody who, like Keaton said, is going to be a favorite across the board. He's driven really well here. He's really driven really well at intermediate tracks as a whole as a rookie, and RCR has just gotten a lot better in the last probably year and a half, 2 years, and so it's something that he might not finish 4th and have the fastest laps that he had last year, but he's starting 35th or 30th, way back there, and so even if he only gets up to the 10th. He's still going to be well worth the $8,500.
Yeah.
And so just moving down, you look at Kyle Busch. 60 points. He's very expensive, but 60 points. Austin Dillon, teammate of Tyler Reddick. Very relatively cheap. The last 3 races he's finished in the top 11th. He almost top 10. He had 111.
111 finished.
The other two were top 10. But and then Newman is somebody who's really intriguing to me. He did not race here last year, recovering from his crash at Daytona, and then but in 2019 he finished 7th here. But he's somebody who, in 2020, his average finish was down to about 20th from about 13, 14 post crash. So this is something where it's a little bit more dangerous. Maybe not dangerous to put him in because he is cheap, and he's starting 23rd, I believe.
So he provides some pretty big upside for his price tag.
And so I
like that.
Yeah, and the thing about it is he's really just he's going to be a filler in most lineups. He's going to allow you to be able to get those, higher $8,000 guys, or maybe even like Kyle Busch, who's 11-8.
Let you go up.
Yeah. And so, if he's able to finish top 15, he's probably paying for himself easy.
Yeah.
And even if he finishes, top 20, he may not get the point differential, but a decent amount of points. And if you hit on those other guys that you're able to get because of him.
Yep.
I think he's worth it. I have him in most of my lineups.
I like it. Okay.
And he's really the only person under 7,000 that I would probably touch.
Okay.
Based on where they start, where I think they're going to finish, just across the board. I just don't see a lot of surprises, and that's kind of the thing that Keaton's trying to be teaching me. Is to look for the maybe statistically not as likely, not unlikely, but the statistically not as likely.
What the field is under, what the field is under projecting, right? If the field thinks this event, Gronkowski catching 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl is some super low outcome
and
event.
not winning the MVP.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are the type of things that you want to bet on, right? If the field has said, look, Newman is dead in the water, he can't do this, then then that's the guy I want to bet on, right? I want to bet on the ones that the field has said he can't get it done.
No.
Provided there's a reasonable opportunity that he can get it done.
And
right?
and that's kind of where most of the guys under 7,000 worry me.
They just can't get it done.
I just don't think they're going to, their upside is like maybe a little bit higher from where they're starting, or
25th or something, right?
And there's some that I think have the potential to run top 20, top 25, but they start 22nd or not 22nd because
outside
starts 22nd, but they start right around where like I think they're probably going to run, and that's something
that's not going to win you a tournament.
And before all of this, I had no idea to even know that was something I need to worry about. So that's something that like I've definitely been keen on here. But yeah, so my verdict on this, we haven't even been talking about the Ricky's verdict. I've literally included them in every slide, and we haven't even highlighted them.
I think you've pointed them out.
What? Yeah.
Oh,
I don't. Why do I have a verdict? I'm not a judge.
So RCR cars are good at Homestead. What are some of the RCR cars you say?
Reddick and Dillon. So Austin Dillon has finished in the top 10 or top 11 as we talked about last.
Are there any RCR cars besides Reddick and Dillon?
No, it's 213.
Okay.
They have a couple satellite teams, but yeah, I mean they've shown a lot of speed. And as we'll see, just in general, I mean they've been performing pretty well even on the intermediate tracks, especially compared to where they're starting. You look at Reddick who's starting 35th and Austin Dillon who's starting 22nd. Like RCR, I mean even on a normal week, most weeks if you say Austin Dillon's going to start 22nd and Tyler Reddick's going to start 35th, they're probably going to be on your roster. Like they're
because they're going to be up in the finish.
They're on a bad week going to be a top 15 team.
Okay.
And so like most weeks, especially 35th, like it's basically a no-brainer.
Okay.
But I've been really impressed with how well RCR has ran at Homestead. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay. Cool.
And really how well Austin Dillon has just ran in general the last probably year and a half. He won the Daytona 500 a couple years ago, but I think as far as pure performance, he's been just constantly just blowing out of the water. But anyways, yeah. So and then this is just the value. So kind of what I was talking about earlier about how which guys are going to be or give you points, but also you can afford.
Who's going to pay off their salaries?
Yeah, with $50,000 for six drivers, you can't. Yeah, you want the most expensive ones, but you can't get them all.
Yep.
And so, as far as like pure dollar price per point, so I divided it. That's how I divided it.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it. Is probably as any.
Yeah, he told me that I should do it the other way, but I didn't like it because it was like Reddick's was like .003.
Yeah, that's a weird way to look at it. Like, in most sports,
this was for a point per dollar.
Like people paying off like 3 to 4 times their salary is sort of how you think about it. If I cost $8,000 in football, I should be putting up 25 points or give or take or whatever. And so it's strange here in NASCAR. It doesn't sound like that's probably necessarily. A way to
there's
think
probably
about
a variable there, but like
it's not the same as
anyways, nonetheless, here we are. So we did it this way. But as you can see, the lower the number, the better. And like Reddick, again, clear one. But you see like Newman, what we were talking about, he's cheap. And he has value. Austin Dillon again. Eric Jones is what we were talking about earlier about how he's in a new ride, might not be, probably not going to be as high as running as when he was in the Gibbs car. So, do you look at the fact that he has proven that he can run really well at Homestead versus the fact that his car's not going to be as good? And that
in a track like this, it sounds like the car matters more.
I think it's going to. And the thing about it is he starts in the late teens, I believe.
Okay.
And so, again, kind of what I was talking about Bubba, like if he started 30th, I think that, I think you get around 20th or so and maybe make himself worth it with how cheap he is. But I just don't see it where he's starting to be worth it. Because I think that 43 is probably a top 20, top 15 on a good day car. I mean, maybe sneak in the top 10, and if he does, good. But like, I just don't see that happening. And even then, like he's probably paying off his salary if he sneaks in the top 10.
Yeah.
But like, he's not paying it off sneaking in the top 15.
Yep.
Anyways, and then
that's
there's
an easy one to cut them.
And then there's Kyle Busch. So again.
And you always love to see a guy that's high salary popping also in the value model.
Yeah.
You know, that tells me that he's got a chance to put up a huge number.
Yeah. And
that's what we're looking for to win a tournament.
Exactly. And he's finished. I think he's finished top 5 the last 3 races. And then this is a similar concept. We looked at the same thing on intermediate track since the beginning of 2018. So it's a little bit bigger sample size, but not specifically at the track.
But it's interesting to see the same drivers, or at least a few
of
the same drivers are popping. So intermediate track versus Homestead, it sounds like there's probably not a ton of difference if these guys run well on a 1.5 mile, or they run well here.
Yeah, I really like DiBenedetto, which I put even in the Ricky verdicts here. I really like DiBenedetto at 8,800. He's starting way in the back, 37th, I believe.
Okay, so he's got tons of points.
He's got tons of 37 points. You know, and I mean he's a guy that week to week, I mean, it's probably always going to be, you know, barring any DNFs or that type of thing, always going to be in the top 15. But he's also a guy, you know, that could, you know, get to the top 10 or even better week to week. And you know, if he does that, he more than pays for himself. But that he's somebody that jumped out at me. Seems like a good value. He's a little bit expensive, a little bit on the more expensive side. Yeah. So I moved him out in a couple of my lineups so that I could afford Kyle Busch.
Yep.
But he's definitely somebody that I like. And then this is the same people again, right? Like this is your
no matter which
way
you divide it, it looks like the same guys are popping.
Yeah. And again, the Ricky verdict. I'll tell you what, I'm pretty good on the Ricky verdicts. It's what I think because
see what I said before.
Thing. Yeah.
Except for Eric Jones, who keeps popping in all the models, but Ricky doesn't love.
Yeah, and who knows?
Which means he's totally going to win this race, right?
Maybe we get out there and like he's a great driver, and I hated to see him have to leave Gibbs. I mean, he won there. I thought he was really good. I'm gonna have to see that 43 perform, you know, well on mile and a half before I would put much stock into it.
Yeah, personally. That's fair.
But again, Newman, Kyle Busch, and then Reddick is just continuing to be up there. And that actually is this one right here is probably the main reason why I like Reddick a ton, is because you can point to last year at Homestead when he finished 4th.
Yep. And
you can be like, oh, he ran really well. He got a lot of fast slaps. It was really good.
But he's crushed 1.5 miles generally.
All last year, he was good there. And again, it says since 2018 he's only ran 1 year, so it's a little bit smaller sample size, but it's still 20 some races at an intermediate track. So it's a lot bigger.
It's a good sample.
And he's super. I had a hard time not putting him in all my lineups.
Based on the ownership I've seen, I think a lot of people are having a hard time not putting him in all their lineups. It looks like he's going to be almost 60% owned.
So this is where I talk about my driver pools. So
I love it.
So I narrowed it down to basically 2 pools. So I have my gunner pool and then my main player pool, whatever you want to call it. And so the way I approached it was I would only do lineups with these people. I think there's a few people outside of this list
Took a flyer on 1 or 2
that I think could be good. Like, I mean, I don't have Kyle Larson on this list we talked about earlier. I think on the next list...
But I think that's a good decision. Like we talked about earlier, you need to narrow your player pool, so you're going to have to make a decision on some players and just say, I'm not rostering Kyle Larson this week.
Yeah.
And
like on the
if
next...
he beats me, he beats me.
On the next one, I don't have Alex Bowman, who is my favorite driver. But he's a little bit on the expensive side. He's starting around 13th. And so he worries me a little bit on that. So I don't have many rosters, even though I'm trying to remove myself too.
I think that's what you have to do as a DFS player. You can't cheer for your team. You can't bet on your team.
I want to pull for the people that I want to pull for.
No, it's smart from a DFS
player. And again, like if Bowman goes out on Sunday and just gets to the front and dominates, which he absolutely can, I will be very happy about it. But all of the stuff that I've said today.
I feel like you got to throw one lineup with your boy in, so that when your boy runs well, because like what I always thought about in football, and like I never had like a massive score because my goal was anything above 5 figures. I was going to put the jersey of the dude that put me there. I was going to get it framed. So I haven't got a 5-figure score. I've had a few good 4-figure scores. Haven't gotten to a 5-figure score yet. But when I do, like I said, we're going to put a framed jersey. So it'd be really messed up if my first thing's like a framed quarter panel. What do you frame if my NASCAR driver ships me 5 figures tomorrow?
You can do anything. You can do a driver's suit.
Get a driver's suit? Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to frame my driver's suit when I ship 5 figures tomorrow on one of these guys.
That'd be awesome.
But I really hate if I really want my first one to be either golf or I would love it to be NFL because I really want to put some.
I would not love it if it was the NFL because that would be 8 months away from now.
I know that would actually that's a long time away. Weeks 5 and 6 last year of NFL, I was putting some Teddy lineups in. I got to tell you, I was so amped to put up a Teddy jersey behind me, and then you just poop the bed.
I'm going to be very honest with you when I say I don't remember when week 5 and 6 of the NFL schedule. Was that when we were winning or when we were losing?
It was when Teddy was feeling pretty strong. We had Robbie Anderson out there just running all sorts of slant routes,
I love Robbie
catching balls on the outside
that was
like
before
a mile.
what the Bear was doing then.
No. Robbie dropped the "What's that bear doing" about week 2, week 3.
Okay.
Anyways, guys, if you like NFL content, hopefully we're still around in 8 months when NFL runs around.
I mean, we'll still be alive barring like death.
Hopefully our YouTube
channel will be around.
Pin pole and the yellow flag. I don't know.
Pin pole and titties.
Pin pole and what's that bear doing?
Oh, anyway.
Hey, Robbie Anderson, if you want to talk DFS, let me know. We'll have you on the show.
Especially NASCAR DFS.
Dude, Robbie Anderson, if you like NASCAR, please.
That would be awesome.
At John Galt JD on Twitter.
At TRParker10. Is that right?
Please hit me up.
Anyways.
Robbie Anderson, you're my favorite Panther. Besides Cam Newton, you're always my favorite Panther. QB1.
Anyways, so again, I have talked about all of these people on my Gunners list. I mostly highlighted when I was making my lineups the top 4. I don't have many lineups with Truex and Harvick in them, but they are 2 that I really think could. These are my 6. I didn't include Bell in this because I include Bell in the next slide, but these are the 6 that I think could be the guys that hop off and lead laps and lead 150 laps and win you your score and not even win you your score, but like make their price worth it.
If they lead 40% of laps, they're paying that off. Yeah.
And then
because they're also having a high finish at that point.
Yeah.
Barring crash at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And then these are all the people we've been talking about.
And these are the guys that less than 10,000, you're probably filling your roster out. So you're probably starting up top with one of your gunners. And then from there, you are building out the other 4 to 5 guys, depending if you're starting with 1 or 2 gunners.
I'm trying to run down who I haven't really talked about. We haven't really talked about Almirola.
I can't even say his name right. I keep messing his name up. So let's talk about him.
Yeah. So he's somebody who he started 16th, so he doesn't have as much upside, but he's in a Stewart Haas car. He's shown a lot of speed. He was really good at the end of the year last year. He came really close to making the Final 4, I believe. He barely missed out on it.
Okay.
And I mean, he's improved beyond even where he was before. And so he's somebody that I think at 7,900, I have him in a lot of lineups.
So do you think he has top 5 upside? I mean, he's starting 16th, so he's got top 5 upside.
I think he's a top 10 car easy, and I think he has upside to 5 or more, right?
Are all the guys that you think have an opportunity to 5 or more, are they guys you think can win? Is there any guy you think can, maybe he can do 5, but there's just no way he can win? Or is there anyone that can get in the top 5?
If you're good enough to get in the top, the thing is like, I mean, kind of what we looked at earlier, like really there's only going to be 2 or 3 cars that are going to win, but like any car that I'm putting in the top 5, I think could win, right? Like, once
no
they
matter
get
how
on,
it shakes out, once we're out there. But.
Exactly. And so, in the past it's been, Gibbs cars, really just across the board because Blaney's ran well, Truex's Gibbs, Chase ran well. So maybe you see some. One person we haven't talked about is William Byron down here at the bottom.
Yeah.
I have him in some lineups, not a ton, because he's a little expensive.
He's starting 31 though.
But he's starting 31st. Yeah. So he's somebody who who hasn't done overly well at Homestead specifically.
Okay.
So he didn't pop off on the statistics side.
How's he on the 1.5s generally?
He's pretty good. I think on that he jumped out in value a little bit more. He was number 8 in value on intermediate tracks. So that's where he starts showing up.
Okay.
And he's a guy who, again, kind of what we were talking about, how, he's probably, every week he's never going to be outside of the top 15 barring a DNF, that type of thing.
Okay.
And so, you get into the top 10, top 5 with a guy like that, even at 9,100, you're getting a lot of points.
Yeah.
And so we're just gonna have to see if he takes that step up. Him and Bowman were pretty similar at Homestead and at on intermediate tracks in that they were good, but not quite great, right? Like you need a little bit.
What's their
more
price tag
there.
sort of reflect?
Exactly, and so my main reason why I would pick Byron over Bowman is Byron's only $300 more, and he starts like 17 spots lower.
You said that instant value.
And so, but beyond that, you look at it, it's the same people, right? Di Benedetto, who I just talked about last slide, Dylan Reddick, Newman, Bell, who I've just raved over, Briscoe and Chastain, who are a little bit of question marks, but they're cheap.
That's what
they're
you
starting
need in DFS, right?
And then I've included Bubba because I do think that there's a chance that the way that the Gibbs cars have ran at Homestead and just intermediate track as a whole, I could see a way that he gets in the top 10 or plus. So I have a few lineups with him.
And is Bubba generally a good driver as well, right?
He's shown that he can drive. He's never had the opportunity to drive in a top tier car at this level.
Is this his best car he's been in?
Oh yeah, by far, because he was in the 43 last year, and it was really a top 20 car. And
what's he moving into now? More of a top 15 car or something?
I think it remains to be seen. I think it's a top 10 car personally. I think the car's gonna be good. It might be closer to top 15. We'll see. And I don't know. I think
at his price tag, you don't really need a ton. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think again, I said it earlier. If he was starting a little bit lower, I'd say 100% jump on him because I think he'll finish
back
top 15.
in the 30th position. You'd be hammering him.
Yeah, but I think he's gonna finish top 15, maybe even better. And as the season goes on, as we see how that car performs and how he performs, and again, it's a new team, so you have the variables of that. And everything, kind of what I was talking about with Larson. You're having the new car, new issues, new team, everything to work through. So it may take a little bit.
It's a lot of unknowns.
It may not.
I sort of like him in DFS. I sort of like the unknown.
Yeah. So
does Bubba have a win on the Cup Tour?
No.
He does not have a Cup win yet. Okay.
He finished second at the 500 last year.
Okay.
And so that's kind of my driver pool. And then I think my next slide, but again, I highlight in the Ricky's verdict. TM.
I love that. Most of the potential in the 7 to 9K range, that's huge, especially if we're trying to get up to the gunners, right? If we're trying to put in a 10 or even an 11K gunner, you're going to need to fill out your roster with that 7 to 9. And if we don't like any guys or we like very limited guys, maybe Newman or maybe a handful of others down in the 6s, you're going to have to stick in that 7 to 9 range. And so, I think that is great that we've identified some value down there.
The only person under 7 that I feel like I'm probably going to end up kicking myself over is Custer.
Okay. And talk a little bit about him then.
He is 6,400, or he's pretty cheap.
Okay.
He's starting relatively high, so he doesn't have that
huge point differential outside.
Yeah, exactly. But he's 6,600, and he's starting 10th. Yeah. But he's a guy. He's in a really good car. He's ran, he's ran well at different tracks, just depending on the place. He's a guy that I'll probably end up beating myself up over if
you're kicking yourself Sunday morning,
right?
Yeah.
But
Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, but I haven't included him purely because he's starting 10th and he just doesn't have that upside for me.
And we talked about earlier, you have to be willing to make some cuts in your player pool, right? It's going to suck, but if Custer goes out and beats you, I guess it's on to next week, right?
Yeah, so exactly. So, anyways, and so moving on, I think this is my top 5 pick. Or It's actually top 6.
Single entry bullet. I like having some single
I have a
entry
single
guys.
entry bullet,
I love that.
but it's called my top 5 picks.
Let's do it.
Is that all right?
There's 6 entries in a lineup. But you know what? DraftKings actually has a rule against building full lineups. They want you to leave a little bit of mystery. So we're just trying to comply with the DraftKings rules.
No, but so I have I am doing. I think I talked about it earlier, but I'm doing a few single entries and then 20 entries.
Yep.
So those are my target teams.
I love 20 entry max tournaments, especially
Yeah.
the one that we're entering. I haven't played this specific tournament, but I played.
Is it the $4 one?
Yeah, it's $4. 20 entry max. It looks like it has maybe 50 or 45,000 runners. I can't remember. But I've had some success in the NFL and PGA side in this size contest and in 20 max. One of the things that 20 max gives you is the ability to match the field, right? No player can have more than 20 entries, so I can put in as many as anyone else. It allows you to differentiate some lineups, but it also allows you to kind of do like a one-off type idea. So I love these 5 guys, and I'm going to mix Briscoe and Bell between my last 2 spots. Or you've got, yeah, exactly. Rick's got one just like that. Or I love these 4 guys, and I've got these 2 for 2s that I'm going to swap these guys 2 for 2, and I'm going to put in both lineups. That's one of the things I like about 20 max is you get that chance.
Yeah.
And so say your 4 guys you really love do well, and now your other 2 you've mixed and matched. You now have two shots at the top of the board. So I love this strategy. I think that's a great way.
Yeah, single entry is interesting. I did 4 single entries on in the Xfinity race today, and 2 of them hit. I mean, not a lot of money, but like a little bit of the money,
For profit,
which was my first win.
First profit.
But the 2 of them hit, and then 2 of them didn't, because the 2 that didn't, I had 2 different lineups, 2 in each, two in 2 different ones, and 2 different ones. And the ones
one
that
of your
didn't,
lineups won, one of your lineups didn't.
exactly. And one of them had somebody who like wrecked like halfway through the race. And the other one, I flopped back and forth between Michael Arnett and Justin Allgaier because they were both starting around the same spot, and I went with Allgaier in one and Arnett in the other.
And one ended up wrecking and one didn't.
And Allgaier ended up not finishing, and so for that one I was out. But
your core was still good in both. It was just whether or not that one do not finish versus finish.
Yeah. So,
and that's exactly that point.
And again, Tyler Reddick killed it again.
I love that guys can race the night before. This is totally mind-blowing to me. It's like dudes are like, "Hey, I'm going to suit up for UFC on Saturday Night Football," but then like, "Yeah, I'll be there with Miami Dolphins. It's fine." Like, "Yeah, I'm just going to go play. It's fine. I'm going to play the quick, Monday night game or Saturday night game, and now I'm going to play Sunday Night Football."
You missed out on the years where Kyle Busch would run basically all 3 races every weekend.
Well, I was listening to another podcast earlier, and I swear there is somebody that is doing trucks, Infinity, and the big race tomorrow. So someone's doing it. It might be Reddick. I don't know because Reddick I know ran today.
I don't think he ran trucks.
He didn't run trucks. Okay, maybe it's one of the lower tier guys. I don't know, but it's mind blowing to me that dudes can just run all these races.
Yeah, but
they're all the same track, right?
Yes.
Trucks.
Well, this weekend.
Cars. Everyone they run the same track.
Did trucks run this weekend?
I don't know enough to say for sure, but I want to say yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, a normal weekend they run the same track. Yeah.
Okay, so just different drivers, different cars, but they run the same track.
There's a few weeks where like they'll run at different places, but very rarely. Most of the time, the same spot.
Cool.
But anyways, yeah.
Well, Xfinity, Reddick, he finished second today.
Yeah, he finished second
at this track, right?
At Homestead. Yeah.
I mean, that feels good. I just don't see myself not. I'm putting Reddick. Honestly, I'm building 20 lineups tomorrow. I'm heavily leaning to just locking Reddick.
I told Keaton that if you put gun to my head 10 lineups, I would have Reddick in at least 8, and he probably would end up in 9. And the only reason I have a 10th one that didn't have him is because
he could crash, right? It's NASCAR, right? Yeah.
And like the thing about it is, I do in my 20 entry league, I think I probably have about 15 Reddick lineups.
Yeah, I think that's probably
and then
right.
5 non. Because I do think there's other guys that have value. Like I hear, if you pick any 6 that on this page right here, that stays under 50 grand, I think you have a shot at doing really, really well, even if you don't have Reddick in it.
And even talking about going low, you could do something low, avoiding Reddick. You could do like a Newman, Dillon, Almirola, Bell lineup, I mean, all those guys are less than the median. So I think
Yeah.
I think the average salary you get $8,300,
Yeah.
and so all those guys are less than the average, which is going to allow you then for your last two to spend, 9 or 10 or even a little bit more depending on what you want to do in the that 2v2.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting strategy too. Is just say, hey, I like these 4 cheap guys, and I'm gonna mix and match the top 2 studs with them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting as well.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, these are my main 7. I showed you my pool earlier.
Yeah.
So I have different rotations with them, but these are really the 7 that I really like. And that's, I think that's.
So besides Reddick, who's your number 2 up there? Would you say? Gun to head, Reddick's appearing in most of the lineups. Who's appearing in most of them behind him? Is it Kyle Busch?
Yeah, I have Busch in a lot. The only reason I don't have Busch in every lineup is because he's so expensive. And
So to me, once we start
few
talking
things.
about rostering Busch, it almost seems like Newman is the de facto pairing with him.
I think it's a good one.
Because he's so cheap, it allows you to get
Yeah.
up to Busch. And so that makes me want to build lineups that don't have those 2 guys together. Like, it just in my head, a lot of my lineups would. That seems to be the easy construction, is getting a Kyle Busch Newman combo. And so I want to see what rosters look like where I don't have Kyle Busch and Newman together. Just looking real
You're
quick
not
at
going to
yours.
find them on Ricky's.
That's what I was going to say. Looking at yours real quickly, have you built a lot of lineups that don't have those 2 together?
If by a lot you mean any.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because of the way their salaries line up, and that's just the DFS aspect, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I know nothing about NASCAR, and so maybe those 2 are the 2 dudes that are just must plays together. But to me, if the natural
hard
build,
part is that I don't know who you go instead, right? Like, because if you put Busch in there, you have to have somebody. That's
you
on
have to get a
7.
salary relief. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where
Maybe you go. You could probably do like a Briscoe, Chastain,
heavy on the sevens.
Bubba, maybe even Bell, Busch, and then another 7. Would that would probably that
If
matches
that
probably
works,
right.
I like that, because I just like the idea of building lineups that don't have Busch and Newman together if Busch and Newman are going to be the de facto pairings, right? If half the field that registers Busch also registers Newman, that makes me not want to do it.
That's fair.
Just from a DFS perspective.
I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do.
And that's something I've had to learn, I think, and I think you'll go through that learning curve as we play more.
We
of
aren't
this.
learning curve, boys. We are winning.
There is a difference between what you think will happen and what the field thinks will happen versus what is actually going to happen. Those are all completely different things.
Yeah.
And so just thinking of things like that, where if I find myself naturally fitting into something too much, like the Newman Busch pairing, my inclination is to not do it.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So.
I don't disagree. Yeah, you could do maybe even you might could fit Armor Roll in there. You could do these 5. So you could do a Armor Roll, a Bell, Briscoe, Chastain, Bubba,
and then get up to Kyle Busch.
I think that works.
It'd be interesting to check out later, but yeah, I think I'm gonna at least try to do 4 or 5 of my builds where I get up to Kyle Busch without putting in Newman.
Well, fine.
No, I just think it's an
maybe
interesting
not
way to
everybody
differentiate.
not everybody else loves Ryan Newman as much as I do.
But it's just a thought, folks. These are the kind of things that I
He's an
think
engineer.
give you an opportunity to win contests. Is just making yourself a little bit different than the field.
I don't think he still is. At one point, he was the only cup driver with a college degree.
Really?
Yep.
That doesn't surprise me.
He went to Purdue.
Smart man. So maybe I want to get back on Ryan Newman. Maybe I just want to get off Kyle Busch then. Maybe that makes me want to load up on the Newman, Dillon, Bell cheap guys, and then find some other stuff besides Kyle Busch. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I like these lineups. I'm starting to dig NASCAR DFS. I'm getting more excited about this race tomorrow.
I can't even tell if he's being sarcastic or
No,
not.
I'm
So
totally
that's a good
serious, and
start.
I feel like this is exactly what NASCAR needs to get a new generation of people interested in these races. Is
people like me talking about it.
yeah, and people like Ricky teaching people like me that want a little bit of gamble on a Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So
and the fun thing about all of this is that this year is going to be really fun because we're seeing new tracks, and it's going to be a little bit like
and a new bit of racing,
a little bit like our new PGA, or about a little bit like our PGA talk, where we were going to a new course and we didn't really know what to expect,
make it up as you go along,
and you just kind of make it up. But we're running dirt, we're running
more road
courses where a few of them we haven't even been to, Circuits of America, and just as a whole, it's going to be a big question mark as we walk through the year. And like I was talking about earlier, with no qualifying for most of these races, seeing how that affects it as we go on.
Yeah, the poll generated by computer is interesting. That was something I was not ready when. I think this year would be a lot more exciting as someone that's never played NASCAR DFS before, is if you had traditional qualifying, because the poll at least feels more random,
well, you're
right?
going to have a lot of fun for like 4 races.
And then it's going to be all just consistent, same dudes finishing in the same, or starting in the same positions every week.
Yeah, you're going to have some week to week because it's half and half based on points and the previous race.
Oh, so it's just one prior week is half the calculus.
It's a weird statistic.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like your finishing position, your fastest lap, it's basically like this.
It is making up as they go along.
Your points position, and something else. I don't know. And they all add together and they shoot out.
So that's a lot different than pole qualifying. I guess at least traditionally in my mind, how I would think of it is you go out there, you run your laps, the fastest dudes get to be pole. Yeah. And at least week to week, that would seem to vary at some degree.
I think it varies, but I think it's interesting because it also, with no qualifying, no practice, it makes it harder to figure out who is going to be good.
Who's running hot that week? Yeah, that's fair. So I guess we're at an hour and a half now. We're probably getting over our time. But let's kind of what else we got in the list here? Let's run through. We ran through our top fives. We're on final thoughts. So do we have any final thoughts? I think we spent a lot of.
I don't even have a thought left. No, I think at the end of the day, it'll be really interesting to see how the race goes. I think it is one of those things where we're gonna have one or two that's gonna dominate as far as leading goes, and for fantasy aspect of it, it'll be interesting. But I think you will see like a lot of moving and shaking as far as the good cars that are towards the back that we talked about will make their way towards the front, and that is fun. That'll make it a little bit fun to watch, but it'll also make it a little bit scary for fantasy owners.
Yeah, so one thing I'm looking for this week, just for learning, because this is very much me trying to learn NASCAR. I'm going to be looking for how my player pool shapes up versus the actual finishing result in the tournament. So I'm going to try to pretty aggressively cut the 38 drivers that we have. I think I'd like to see my pool in the 13 to 15 range.
Mine was 17.
17, yeah, I think that's probably pretty reasonable. So I want to make some of those decisions like Ricky and I talked about. And so I think I'm going to be deferring to Ricky's expertise here. So I am going to be cutting guys like Ricky said. I'm going to be cutting Larson. I'm going to be cutting some of those other guys from my pool with the thought that I want to have a tight pool to give myself the best chance to fit that perfect combination if our theory about how the race is going to play out is true. And by our, I mean Ricky's theory about how the race is going to play out is true. I want to give myself the most shots on goal in that theory. And so I will be pretty aggressively cutting my list. But one thing I want to look back when I, kind of look back on my lineups and assess, what I want to do next week is looking at my player pool versus how the results go. And so I'll be really interested to look back at that this week.
Yeah.
So that's one thing for final takeaways is just pretty aggressively cut your pool. And then let's be ready to look next week at whether we made the right cuts.
Yeah, perfect. And that's the end of this week. We will, if you slipped all the way to the end, we will have at least a couple of like pinpoints where you could jump to for some fun stuff
if you made it to the 16-minute mark or you made it to the hour 33-minute mark.
You can't tell them about the 16-minute mark at the end because they're just going to see it. In theory, if you make it to the end, also just add a comment and Keaton's paying for your supper or something.
Yeah, we're gonna give away a $5 entry to somebody ship some DraftKings.
But we will have a few marks to hit where we talked about what, so you can skip around if you don't have the time to listen to an hour and a half but want to get some knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, and remember to like and subscribe because we're trying to grow this fledgling channel.
Yeah, fledgling. That's not a good name for it.
Fledgling?
Beginning. yeah, I mean, you can't be fledgling if you just started, right?
Entry level?
Fledgling, lower funded.
Lower funded. We are certainly a lower funded YouTube channel. It's to the chance we wanted to be derogatory to those lower funded teams. We feel you.
But yeah, and again, if you want to follow us on Twitter, at TRParker10.
At John Galt JD.
Or follow my racing page at Ricky Parker Racing on Facebook.
Awesome shortcut tracks.
Bah! I don't know where the mouse
Where's the stop button?
This is extended bloopers.